You know what? Mehdi Hasan always comes correct. You know what? And Cenk Uygur always coming incorrect. So they're kind of perfect foils in that sense. You know, Cenk loves to both sides every issue, even when it ought not be both sided. Right? He's the penultimate fence sitter. All right, second only to his good pal Anna, who really just simps for the right. He says right wing becoming the ones who cancel comics is obviously the mirror image of the left from the Biden era. Whoever is in power doesn't want to be criticized or joked about. Power is addictive. Just like the Democrats, you won't have it for much longer if you become the scolds.
Yeah. So fucking stupid. What an absolutely idiotic thing to say. Right as MAGA, right as Donald Trump uses this moment to really seize, almost complete totalitarian control, threatening the media, intimidating media figures, comedians, commentators, and journalists alike. Imagine this is your fucking takeaway.
And not only that, they're bragging about it. Benny Johnson literally cut a video clip bragging about how he was the podcaster who had on the FCC chair, who was, that it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was why Jimmy Kimmel got canceled, right? So they're not even pretending that this was some sort of, independent business decision by ABC or whatever the fucking parent company of the television stations were. We know for a fact it came from the top down from the president.
Right. And again, you can criticize like left-wing culture for being like if you think wokeness is like has an authoritarian bent to it as far as like the cultural consequences that are doled out to offenders, then you can make that argument. But it's not Joe Biden. You want to say that Joe Biden was woke? All right, good luck convincing people of that.
Listen, Jack, we're gonna take things in a new way. There's 5 genders. There's 35 genders, and that's what it is, pal.
He did say there's at least 3, which was hilarious. At least 3. But yeah, Mehdi Hasan comes in and says, how is it a mirror image? Which anti-Biden comedian was fired at the behest of Biden FCC chair Jessica Rosenworcel? Which obviously is a great point. Do you mind zooming in just a tad, Zach, so people can see that beautiful ratio? 8.8K likes to Cenk's measly, pathetic 3K with the original tweet. And obviously it's such a good point because that's not something that happened. That's simply not something that happened. I think that maybe the closest, if we really want to stretch, like I was trying to think of like, okay, what's a comedian that got like canceled under Biden? I'm pretty sure Biden was still president when this went down, but Dave Chappelle I think it was under Biden when Dave Chappelle released that special, and a bunch of people were like,
I think that might have actually still been Donald Trump. I think that was 2020. But let me look.
I think it was under Biden. But even that, Biden never got involved. It was like a bunch of activists online. It was like people that were, calling up Netflix to try to get him taken off.
Oh, the Netflix protest did happen under Biden, but it was let's see. It was September of 2020 when he started like really getting into the shit.
Okay, well, either way, it was some of the backlash might have occurred under Trump, some of it might, but even that just proves how terrible Cenk's point is, because this is the closest I could come up with to like the left trying to cancel somebody or whatever. And there were people on the left. I remember at the time kind of sort of disagreeing with them because I was like, I think Dave Chappelle is cringe, but like, whatever, we only want like fucking left-wing comedy on Netflix. We can't have this fucking guy making boomer points. Like it just seemed, it kind of seemed cringe to me, but it's still people's right to do. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just citizens. It was employees of Netflix, some of which boycotted the company in the wake of that special being released and stuff like that. But again, that's just that is your freedom of protest. You have the freedom to protest companies that, program points of view that you don't like or that you think are like fascist, enabling and stuff. So that was just like people doing like a protest. Biden never got involved with that. Could you imagine the freak out from the right wing if Biden had called up Netflix, or if Biden's FCC chair, Jessica Rosenworcel, if she had called up Netflix and basically strong-armed them into getting rid of Dave Chappelle? Like that would have been crazy.
Oh, 100%. And I think a good parallel for what the left did was something that the right also did via guys like Ben Shapiro. What were they constantly railing about? Oh, Disney's gone woke. Stop taking your kids to go see Disney movies. They're woke. Oh my gosh, they used to be wholesome childhood. The right's going to boycott Disney. They did all of that shit, except nobody called that cancel culture. Why? Because that was just them deciding to vote with their wallets. Basically them saying like, fine, if Disney's going to put out this content, I'm not going to take my kid to see it. Guess what? That's your fucking right to do that. That's why nobody called it cancel culture when you were doing that. That's why nobody fucking said that it was an infringement on the First Amendment when you were doing that, because it was your right to not take your kids to that movie, right? Manipulating the fucking entire media apparatus by playing puppeteer with the FCC chair. Yeah, that's a huge violation of the First Amendment. And what's crazy about this is Cenk doesn't even try and defend himself. He just immediately turtles. He's like, you got me, Mehdi. You got me. He says Biden didn't use FCC to intimidate comics. That's true. He did use the entire national media to intimidate anyone who opposed him inside Democratic Party. That's why no one dared to run against the Mad King. And if you're claiming the left never canceled anyone, come on, brother. So just again, completely moving the goalpost. And he says, I didn't claim anything, my friend. I asked you where the Biden FCC intimidated the press and his critics. You agreed with me that it didn't. So your original claim that the left and right are mirror images on this just isn't accurate. That's all I was pointing out. And again, he gets brutally ratioed.
Yeah.
He then rolls over once more and says, great, we agree. We both think the FCC should not intimidate the press and neither side should do cancel culture. It's like, bro, you just got humiliated. You just got proven that what you said was wrong. You agreed what you said was wrong. And now you are still acting like you were right the whole time. That's the most Cenk shit ever.
Yeah, truly, truly humiliating. And again, it's just such boring commentary too, just basically doing both sides every time. Like, oh, well, yeah, this is bad, but it's really any worse than what Joe Biden did. It's like, yeah, it is fucking worse. And it's your job as a commentator to point out how and why this is such a terrifying infringement on the freedom of the press and on the media, and how it will have a chilling effect on basically anyone who has a job in the political commentary space. It's absolutely horrifying. And there is absolutely no equivalent under the Biden administration. It's just a fucking lie to imply. Otherwise, thank God Mehdi Hasan was there to check Cenk, because this is just the role that Cenk plays on Twitter these days, is pandering to the right wing, much like his role with Anna Kasparian at the Young Turks, which you guys are going to see more proof of in a second.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, no, just the continued downward spiral of Cenk Uygur. But yeah, Gavin, do you want to get into this Anna Kasparian, her take appearance? I do.
But one sec before we do that, I thought it would also be worth taking a look at Mehdi Hasan clapping back and destroying Dave Smith. I don't know if you saw this exchange, but this was the most annoying shit ever. And we told you guys that Dave Smith is an idiot. He's a fucking moron. Just because he occasionally says the right thing about Israel. And, occasionally he'll have the right instinct. Like he went on Breaking Points and called for Trump's impeachment, ooh, shot. What a brave guy. What a fucking principled thinker. Right. Well, it doesn't take very long until he's right back at just firing off the dumbest, stupid bullshit again, pandering to MAGA. This is so annoying, but call me crazy. But I thought the major violation of free speech last week was when the free speech guy got shot in the neck for promoting free speech. Evidently, it was the vaccine salesman with terrible ratings getting fired. So real snarky. Do you have anything to respond to that before we get into Mehdi's epic clapback?
I haven't seen Mehdi's clapback yet, but my clapback is the guy wasn't killed by the fucking government, you idiot. Like, and that's what's so fucking dumb. These guys claim to be so principled when it comes to free speech. This guy calls himself a libertarian. Okay, so what he should be doing is talking about how the FCC shouldn't even exist. He should be out here talking about how fucking insane it is that the executive branch would ever dare control what a private business was doing, that they would ever impose their will with whatever fucking employee of a broadcasting company was saying. He should be out here talking about how abhorrent it is, how this is the end of America, how we were supposed to have freedoms in this country like the First Amendment. And you're also supposed to be out here and say, oh, well, we're allowed to have guns in this country. Don't take all of our rights away because of what one crazy guy did. That's your script, Dave. You're the libertarian. It's always wild to me when I have to come out here and tell the guys who make their entire brand, I'm a libertarian, what it means to be a libertarian, bro. That would be what a libertarian would say here if you actually had those principles. Of course you don't. You're just a cum swallower for MAGA.
Yep, 100%. He's so annoying. I fucking hate this guy, and it pisses me off when people give him more credit than he deserves for, again, occasionally saying something right in the company of some douchebag like Douglas Murray or something, which was kind of glorious. But still, if we go down here, Mehdi says, come on, Dave, you know very well the difference between a loner loser assassin and the full force of the federal government suppressing speech. One is a horrible murder. The other is an existential threat to our democracy, which again, Mehdi does not need to explain this to Dave Smith. Dave Smith is smarter than he sometimes pretends to be with idiotic statements like this, where he's literally just pandering to the dumbest fucking people in America. As I've said before, Dave Smith is a perfect example of who a dumb person thinks is a smart person, like a smart person that is held up by idiots as like a real genius. Oh, wow, Dave Smith, he's a real free thinker, but of course he'll always come back to idiotic statements like this, which again just exist to undermine the truly fascist nature of Donald Trump and his authoritarian movement. So of course Mehdi is explaining this to him, even though Dave already knows. Then he comes back with this idiotic Jimmy Dore line. Mehdi, my friend, I don't know how to respond to the quote unquote existential threat to our democracy stuff anymore. It's like saying something is an existential threat to our Narnia. What are we even talking about? A dream someone once had? So obviously Zach and I criticize our democracy all the time and point out ways that it could be strengthened and how we could live in an even more democratic society. But to say that, might as well just let this fascist president take away whatever shards of democracy are left and just totally replace it with a tin pot dictatorship, to just be like, whatever. We don't even have democracy anyway, so who cares what Trump does? That's fucking crazy. It's intellectually dishonest, and it's just letting himself off the hook so he doesn't actually have to answer for or defend the truly undemocratic instincts of our president.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you follow this analogy or whatever, he's basically saying that our democracy doesn't exist, so who cares? Like, Narnia doesn't exist, and he's using Narnia where democracy was, right? So it's like existential threat to our democracy is like saying something is an existential threat to our Narnia. So he's basically coming out and saying he doesn't think we have a democracy, so who cares about democracy? That is, again, a batshit crazy thing to say when your entire fucking brand is built upon being a libertarian. Libertarians aren't supposed to believe in much, but they do believe in democracy. They do believe in voting. They do believe in the right to organize. They do believe in the right to collective decision-making. Right? That is what you're pretending doesn't exist in the country, the United States of America. Like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? Do you just sell out all of your beliefs to become a pawn to just, kind of try and grab onto as much Charlie Kirk cash falling from the sky as you possibly could? We've seen so many people doing that right now. We've seen so many people just humiliating and debasing themselves. Why? Because a bunch of people used to watch Charlie Kirk. Now those people don't have Charlie Kirk to watch anymore. So it's going to be either Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith. That picks off the rest of their arguments or their audience, So they're making these weak ass arguments. I keep fucking myself up. They're making these weak ass arguments to the audiences, basically to pitch them to come over here, but he's not saying anything. He's not saying anything at all here. This isn't a response to Mehdi's argument. This is just him.
It's a Jimmy Dore style cliche.
It's just crazy. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. And again, if you don't think that democracy exists in this country at all, then how the fuck is Donald Trump the president? If democracy doesn't exist, then why is Joe Biden / Kamala Harris not still lording over all of us? Like, how the fuck did that happen? Did it magic? Like, it seems like that was a democratic expression, as much as I hate to admit it. Yeah, I hate to admit that my fellow Americans decided to come out 53% or whatever and vote for a fucking fascist, but they did. That is a democratic expression. That's the reason why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are no longer in charge. So it's pretty crazy for you to deny that. And let's see what Mehdi Hasan says in response. Okay, let me use an analogy that you and I agree upon. Remember when the war on terror folks tried to present a single terror attack as a threat to our liberties, but you and I were among those pointing out the government response to it was the real threat to our liberties, which is a great point. Imagine right after the Patriot Act had passed, imagine some idiot like Dave Smith coming out here and saying, chill. You guys want to get upset and fearmonger about the Patriot Act instead of the 3,000 Americans that just died in a terrorist attack? Really? You're gonna nitpick the Patriot Act after we just suffered a fucking terrorist attack that killed thousands of Americans? I mean, that's the sort of gaslighting that Mehdi is referencing, that absolutely people like Mehdi Hasan did deal with at the 2000s.
And you know who was employing it, Gavin? You know who was saying that exact same stupid shit that
Carlson?
came out? Tucker Carlson was saying it constantly, and he would do it in his weasel little bow tie and his fucking, you mean to tell me that right now, after I've just watched 3,000 American citizens, people worship the country that I live in. People who are a part of me because they're a part of the fabric of society that I'm a part of. You want me to turn the other cheek? You want me to say, go away, those people who were victims of horrible terrorist brutality, Islamic jihadist terror? You want me to forget all about those people? Of course I won't do that. Just because you say there's something wrong with this Patriot Act. Well, I like acting like a patriot. That's the kind of shit that Tucker would say.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great point for Mehdi to make. And I think Dave follows up with one last idiotic attempt to gaslight us all. Sure, and I oppose any government response to this, including FCC thugs threatening companies, and of course the crackdown on the pro-Palestinian left that I'm sure is to follow. I also think that obviously in this case, the public assassination of a political commentator at a college is more chilling to free speech. So yeah, he's pretending to admit here, like, oh, of course I agree with that. Unfortunately, only 23,000 people saw this tweet, like buried all the way down here, compared to the 2.8 million that saw this tweet. And obviously none of their takeaway is going to be that Dave Smith does actually not support the government overreach on the FCC and all that crap. No, it's going to be, oh, here's a reason to not care about the government attack on the First Amendment, to, not care about Jimmy Kimmel being deposed of by the fascists in the White House, right? That's what the people who saw this tweet and favorited it are going to take away with it. Here's an excuse to not care. Here's an excuse to think, I guess everything is kind of fine. Because Jimmy Kimmel was just, he was pro-vaccine. And is it really as bad as Charlie getting shot in the neck? No. So I guess I don't have to care about it.
Yep. Sad state of affairs, pathetic state of affairs. And honestly, again, another Vanguard take that's aging like wine. So many people tried to pretend that Dave Smith was a serious commentator, that he was an actual ethical broadcaster. He's an opportunist, just like all the other hacks. And, good for Mehdi for exposing him.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Beep, 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 beep.